different season. Byron Pitts, this celebration was exactly what you predicted, the homegoing for George Floyd, part grief, part celebration, exhortation to move forward. I was struck by one line from Reverend Sharpton. You've changed the world, George. He said it as a declaration. It's also a hope and an open question.
George, that is exactly right. It seems to me that if you've never been to a black church, if you've never been to any church for a memorial service, today our nation, perhaps much of the world, went to church, where it's part scripture, part humor, part politics, part redemption, hope, and faith. I was struck by something that Attorney Crump said earlier that took it from the element of just race, that this is not just a black struggle, but American struggle, where he said, what we're working on is an effort to help America be America for all Americans. To Lindsay's point earlier that we saw George Floyd humanized today, not as a black man, but as a man from modest means. I think a lot of us who come from humble beginnings can relate to banana mayonnaise sandwich and those kinds of stories. And George, we also heard humor. That, I mean, when in the last time, in the last 10 days in dealing with the story, has anyone laughed? But today, as a nation, we were able to hear his family laugh and perhaps allow all of us to laugh in the craziness and the heartbreak of this moment. And George, I was thinking of all the things said today of the scripture of Psalm 30 that says, weeping may dureth for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. And so we're weeping still as a nation, and it'll be interesting to see what joy will come in the morning as we get through this. Moving service. I think it spoke to many people's hearts, not just to black hearts, but to all hearts, I think, of good and decent people, that we saw our humanity and what's possible in America, that even in difficult, dark, and painful moments, joy can come in the morning. For this family, for much of the nation, they want justice. I think for many people, justice may be a guilty verdict, which may or may not come. But I think at the end of the day, what all people in our nation want to see is due process, is to see what can happen when our system that is supposed to be blind works for this man, works for this family. We will see.
And that process is just beginning. Thank you, Brian. And what a sign of the times to see that laughter and those tears and that call and response through the muffled masks on the face of all the congregants today. We are going to return now to our regular programming. There will be more memorial services for George Floyd in the days ahead. And of course, we will see how the process of justice grinds on. Stay tuned with us. We're going to have full coverage of this on ABC News Live and, of course, on World News Tonight with David Muir. Have a good afternoon.
You've been watching an ABC News special report covering the memorial of George Floyd. This comes as protests continue across the country, including right here in the tri-state, pushing for justice, pushing for change. Thanks for joining us at 4 o'clock. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. WCPO 9 News reporter Paula Suro is live at the courthouse with the crowd that's gathered there downtown right now. Paula.
Yeah, Tanya, you know, the energy here right now, completely different to that of just a few hours ago. I mean, you can see there's a group of about 100 gathered here outside of the courthouse, but I spoke to several of them and they told me they were supposed to gather here at 1 o'clock today, but at 1 o'clock there were maybe just about 20 people or so, but really they say it might have been because of the weather. It did rain here around 2 o'clock today, but that doesn't matter. A lot of them are out here right now. They say it is so important to fight for rights right now. There's a group also offering water and free snacks to those showing up here today. But, you know, not a lot of people have been out here today compared to what we've seen previous days. That doesn't matter, though. I did speak with a 21-year-old girl here who was just cleared to walk after she tore her meniscus. Jalen Bonner says it is so important for her to be here because her life matters, and she says she doesn't want to live in fear anymore. Listen.
It's really hoping that outside of the U.S. too, 18 other countries are protesting with us, because this is not a United States problem. This is a worldwide pandemic.
Now, just about 10 minutes or so ago, sheriff deputies actually stepped outside of the courthouse and they put some barriers up so that protesters couldn't go up the stairs. But we hadn't seen anything like that all day, really. Protesters have been very quiet, very calm, very peaceful here today. But as you can see, pretty quiet right now. Of course, we'll keep you updated on whether or not they start to move. But That's it for now here at the courthouse. I'm Paola Lucero, WCPO 9 News.
All right, Paola, thanks so very much. Billions in unemployment benefits have been paid out, but now federal authorities think hundreds of millions could be intercepted by scammers. The WCPO 9 News I team is looking to a loophole that might have allowed them to get away with this. Ohio has now paid more than $4.6 billion in unemployment benefits through the two federal programs established by the CARES Act to protect those who lost their jobs due to COVID-19. But a new federal report says more than 10% of that money will be wasted on people who don't actually qualify. The U.S. Labor Department's Inspector General is particularly concerned about the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, or PUA, which is intended for independent contractors and gig workers. But investigative reporter Dan Monk discovered government watchdogs think the CARES Act left a big loophole to enable fraud.
I couldn't apply for PUA.
Sydney Wayne tried for weeks to get pandemic unemployment benefits for the 10 weeks her Montgomery hair salon was shut down by COVID-19.
Pretty much every PUA worker I've just, talked to said that I should qualify.
Wayne still hasn't gotten approved, so she was surprised to learn the Labor Department's Inspector General told Congress this week that PUA benefits are too easy for criminals to obtain.
It makes me very upset with the system.
In written testimony to the House Committee on Oversight, IG Scott Dahl said at least $26 billion will be wasted on improper unemployment insurance payments this year, and a large portion of that will be pocketed by fraudsters. Dahl added the PUA program is at increased risk of fraud because states are allowing claimants to self-certify their income levels without providing documentation.
These people who are not legitimate are so easily getting PUA, but then that some of these people that are legitimate, like me, are having this horrible time trying to get it.
Ohio is asking for documentation to obtain PUA payments, according to Kimberly Hall, director of Ohio's Department of Job and Family Services.
In Ohio, we do pretty well with our fraud detection.
But she agrees Ohio will see a spike in improper payments this year. In fact, the state has already identified 1,500 cases of overall unemployment fraud since April.
The lion's share rests within kind of tricky things people are trying to do between identity, bank accounts, and things like that. But then also where the person actually has returned to work, but is continuing to claim.
Most of the cases will end up in collections, but 7 have already been referred for criminal prosecution. None of those are in Southwest Ohio. Dan Monk, WCPO 9, I-Team.
Well, one of the unemployment scams investigators have been seeing this year involves people who offer help in applying for claims, but instead of helping, they use the victim's personal information to steal their benefits. For more details on that and other unemployment fraud schemes, check out Dan's digital story on WCPO.com.